Hey, look, it's 4 in the morning. The band's improvising a tune. Down on the floor, we're still dancing, spinning around the room. The choir singing hallelujah. Picasso detunes a guitar. Robespierre says we're not there yet. Oh, but maybe we've gone too far. Our finery's worn and faded. The fabric is torn and frayed. The tinker's
I
trying
would
to
like to
patch it
welcome
up.
someone I really have never met before, and I'm so thrilled to be meeting him. And this is Rags Rosenberg. And Rags has a brand new album out titled Songs of the, well, I hope I say this right. Bricoleur, is that the way you
Oh,
say
it's a good try. It's and everyone asks this question. It's Bricoleur. It's a song of the Bricoleur.
it? Is that a French word
It's
or?
a French term, and it's a French term that literally means a brick mason, a bricoleur, someone who builds
Ah,
brick walls. And it
okay.
really is used as a euphemism to refer to anyone who patches together what they can with what they have on hand.
Wow. That's amazing, really. So that's what the album is titled, and we're gonna hear Rags do a couple of songs for the folks watching on television. You'll see him performing, and for the folks listening on the mostly folk radio, we'll go through the entire album, and
Mhm.
Rags will talk about that. But first, let's talk about Rags because I have to be honest, I didn't know Rags music until this album came out. I listened to the album and loved it, and certainly was looking forward to speaking with him about it. And so this is Rags, and the first thing, of course, I'm sure that many people ask you is the name Rags. And of course, your mom didn't give you that name when you were born. So I doubt. So
No.
tell, how did you get that name? And let's start with that.
You know, for a number of years before COVID, I went to the Kerrville Folk Festival and camp out in the meadow, and a lot of people there just, they had handles, they had names that they used, and where that one comes from is from actually a William Butler Yeats poem called Circus Animals Desertion, and it refers to the last line in the poem, which I'll tell you in just a second. But first I want to tell you, he was 80 years old when he wrote his last book of poetry in which this poem appears, at the end of his life. And all his life he had spent using Celtic mythological characters in his poetry. Cuchulainn, all of these characters, that's what he wrote about. And at this stage of his life, right at the end of it, he said, I've been parading these figures around like they're circus animals, and I want to do something different. I want to go down into my own self. I want to go write something that's more personal to me. And so the last line of the poem is, now I have to go down where all the ladders start, in the foul rag and bone shop of the heart. And back in the late 80s, early 90s, the poet Robert Bly and the storyteller Michael Mead and the fellow who translated all that Rumi poetry, I can't think, Coleman Barks, used to go, and James Hillman, the psychotherapist, they used to go around the country in what was called, the men's movement, and they would have these programs where they would try to redefine what's it mean to be a man, a male in our Western culture. And they eventually ended up curating a book of poetry called The Rag and Bone Shop of the Heart, a book of poetry for men. And of course, it's poetry for everybody, but that's where the name Rags comes from, because I'm 79 years old. I'm at a stage in my life where I'm trying to do the same thing. I've got a lot of work in my earlier life that's, it's kind of fun and lighthearted in some ways. And over the last period of time, I mean, I'd say since like 2011, 2012, I've just like, especially after I left Nashville and started I moved to the desert. I did my 40 days in the desert. I was in the desert for 14 years in Joshua Tree, and that's where this album was written. So it was a real shift from writing country radio kind of stuff to writing stuff that was more along the lines of my roots, that where I came from, which is listening to Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan and Tom Waits. You know, it's like,
Tell me about your youth. What are these influences? Where did you grow up and what got you into where you are right now?
I grew up in a little town called, well, twin towns called Sunland, Tujunga in Southern California, kind of a rural area. So I didn't do any songwriting, but I always was intrigued by poetry, and I did try to write poetry when I was in high school. Not very good poetry, but I did start to learn that I could put words on a page. In the 60s, I was in high school. I graduated in 64. So 61, 62, 63, who's on the radio? It's Bob Dylan. It's the Byrds. It's like Donovan. It's like, wow. I'm going, wow, songs can make a difference in the world. And it's like, okay. And so I started writing songs. And again, like all songwriters, you start out not necessarily very good ones, but you start to get the feel. And just long story short, in 94, I moved to Nashville, Tennessee to really learn how you write a song. And so I sat in Nashville, for those of you who don't know, Nashville, every night of the week, they have these events all over town called Songwriters in the Round, where four usually songwriters will sit in a row or sit in a round and with a microphone in the middle and surrounded by people, and they'll perform their latest songs. And so in Nashville, you go to one of these places, is the Bluebird Cafe, which kind of started this format. And who are you hearing? You're hearing the songs that are like on the top 10 of country radio every night, one after the other. And these are the songwriters that wrote them, not the artists that perform them. These are craftspeople, people that know the art and the craft of songwriting. That's where I learned. I was there for 14 years in Nashville. And then when I realized I wasn't going to have any success being a country songwriter, because it doesn't really interest me, It's like I'm looking for something else. When I moved to the desert, that's when things really started to change. So it was kind of a journey from Southern California I went to Atlanta first. I was a construction guy. I had a framing company. I used to frame these big 400, 500 unit apartment buildings. I was running a big construction company, and I hated it. I mean, I loved the money, but eventually I lost it. I mean, I went into a huge depression and went through a big divorce, got custody of my kids because that was like my Vietnam, And at that point in my life, it's like, okay, I've done it now. I've sabotaged my ability to earn a living. Lost my house, lost my car, took my two kids, and we moved to Nashville because I'm going to be a songwriter. I'm going to make a living at songwriting. No, you're not. You're not going to make a living at songwriting, but you're going to be there. And so I discovered very quickly that I was outgunned by these incredible writers there who had been there for years and who really knew how to affect people and really knew how to take a song and a story and get down with it for people. And so I learned, and I would go to these clubs at night and I would sit at the feet of these masters and like take it in and go, wow, how'd they do that? It's like, whoa. Over and over and over again. But again, like I said, over time I realized I wasn't going to write those kinds of songs. My roots were in folk music. So I went to Nashville. I went to Joshua Tree, and we lived in a little cabin at 400 square feet. No neighbors. Lived there like that. No water. We had hauled in water. We had a little.
How did you make a living when you did that?
I went to work as a carpenter. I went back to being just a carpenter. I went to building stairs on projects like in Goodlettsville or wherever I could get a job. That's a whole other story because I won't get into all that.
Okay.
But that's what I did to make a living. I became a carpenter. But at the same time, while I was doing that, because I was in Nashville now, I could go really study songwriting. It wasn't like when I had this big construction company and all that. So that's kind of the long arc of it. What else you want to know? Hello, hello, they call me John Doe, treading on this stag, tied to my toe. They found me neath a bridge under a blanket of snow. Hello, hello, they call me John Doe. No one came round here to claim these old bones. If somebody had, these folks would have known. My mama, she named me after Grandpa Joe. But everyone here just calls me John Doe. Well, my dear old daddy, he called me son. I had a good woman, she called me hon. They called me a soldier, they called me a bum. But there was a time when I was someone. Back from the war, my head wasn't right. Took little white pills to make it through the night. First rent the car, then the house and the wife. A tent on the street, a shopping cart life. Somebody tell me how your story lives on when your name don't live on anyone's tongue. Hey, what's in a name when all is said and done? Nothing at all till you don't have one. Well, they'll hire a preacher, pray I am saved, knowing Willie Roses over my grave. I don't care what you call me when I'm in the ground, 'cause they'll know my name where I'm headed now. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so then what you're in Nashville, I'm assuming you started writing songs, some of which are on this album, I'm sure. And so what was the progression from the guy who was sitting there in these sessions with other songwriters, listening to these incredible people? What was the process that made you start performing and recording your own album?
That's a really good question. And the answer is because no one else was performing them.
Hmm.
I could not, I swear to God, I could not carry a tune. I was not a singer. I had never been a singer. And actually, the fact that I had not been a singer, my melodies sort of suffered from that, because when you're a singer and you have that facility and you know your scales and you can sing these off-chord notes and you can make them sound good and you can create really interesting melodies, you know, I was kind of like primary colors in my melody in sort of a way. You know, it's like I couldn't get the nuance that I really wanted. I went and I studied singing, and I found some great vocal coaches and spent years it started when I moved to the desert after leaving Nashville. It's like, okay, I want to perform these songs I'm starting to write now because I like them and I want people to hear them. But, you know, all the people that do folk music, by and large, they write their own songs, and these songs are folk songs, so who's going to perform them if I don't? So that was the progression. I went and learned how to sing. And the other thing is, when I moved to Joshua Tree and started doing all of this, one of my neighbors there is this fella named Bobby Fergo. Bobby Fergo was Leonard Cohen's violin player. And Bobby took me under his wing, introduced me to all the other musicians, went into the studio with me, and that's him on all the early recordings. And on the new one, too. That's him playing violin on all the stuff. So that was a huge boost for me to have that affirmation from someone like Bobby, who saw the value of the work and really brought me into that world in the desert in Joshua Tree. There's a lot of fine musicians and some really good recording studios out there in the desert.
And so were you performing anywhere during this time? Did you go out to perform?
Every Friday at the Joshua Tree Saloon, you could come hear me play.
Great.
Yeah.
So that's
and I also started a show called the Songwriters in the Round Show in Joshua Tree, because I missed that format. And, you know, they didn't have anything like that in the desert. And so in Joshua Tree at this community center called the Beatnik Cafe, I started a monthly Songwriters in the Round and started inviting local songwriters. And eventually songwriters from LA would come and play, and songwriters that were on tour from Nashville, people that I knew from my days in Nashville, would come and perform. And it was a really successful event there. And I did that for about 3 years. Eventually it was like, I'm not doing a whole lot of songwriting. I need to shift. And so I stopped doing that and began just focusing more on my writing and performing. And I did some shows. I did when my first album, Flower Time, got Bobby Fergo and some of these other really great musicians from the desert, Gar Robertson, great mandolin player, and got together and I formed a band, and we did my 70th birthday party at Pappy and Harriet's. So yeah, things just developed, you know, and I kept meeting new people, and people kept inviting me to do house concerts and stuff like that. So that's how it went.
Bullfrogs. Well, I knew the flood was coming. What was I supposed to do? One body cannot stop the wave. I heard the thunder drumming, I saw the lightning too. Still the storm, it seemed so far away. The word was on the wire, in the eyes and fire. There'll be time and time again we all fought. They say it's hard to see when it's rising by degree. Bullfrogs in the pot. Bullfrogs in the pot. Well, we scrape the earth for fortune, we scrape the sky for fame. What were we trying to prove? The signs, we just ignored them while it all went up in flames. Who knew we had so much to lose? The word was on the wire, in the ice and fire. There'll be time and time again we all fought. They say it's hard to see when it's rising by degree. Bullfrogs in the pot. Some say no need to worry. They say God has a plan. Well, that's exactly what worries me. You see, I've read his book. He saves a chosen few, and the rest drown in the rising sea. The word was on the wire, in the ice and fire. There'll be time and time again we all fought. They say it's hard to see when it's rising by degree. Bullfrogs in the pot. Bullfrogs in the pot.
Say the name of the album once again, so we get it correct.
Okay. Song of the Bricoleur.
Okay. And the Bricoleur is a bricklayer.
It's
So
a brick mason,
why
basically.
are they songs? Why? What's the significance of that?
Okay, so 2011, I read a paper by this fella, Dr. David Miller, out of Syracuse. And the title of the paper was Bricoleur in the Tennis Court. And what the paper was about was the fact that, it captured, there was a painting by Jacques-Louis David that he was talking about, and the painting captures this moment in the French Revolution at the very inception of it, where the National Assembly, which was the citizenry aspect of that whole kind of tripartite setup there, they were kicked out by the king, kicked out of the Palace of Versailles, and they went down the street to a tennis court. And so in this painting, it's an indoor tennis court, and you see these openings up at the top with people looking in, the masses of people looking in at this scene. And the scene is all these men, and of course this is 1789 or whatever, so it's all men. They've got their arms around each other and their fists in the air, and they're deciding they're going to make revolution. This was the moment. And Jacques-Louis David captures this moment in this painting called Tennis Court Oath. So what Miller says about this, and what I really took to heart, is that this was a sea change in everything about our culture. This was like the atomic bomb, or this was like AI at that time. It was like, oh wow, we are no longer going to consider it. We no longer have to be ruled by divine right. God, we're not going to let God select our kings. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to create a government, and we're going to govern ourselves. I mean, you can imagine what that might have been like at the time. So it was just huge. It was just huge. And it's interesting that less than 100 years later, I mean, because this was the time of this was just preceding, this was after the Renaissance. This was like around the time of the Enlightenment. This is the rise of science. And this is like, it was only like 80 or so years later that Goethe said, or Nietzsche said, Nietzsche, not Goethe, Nietzsche said, God is dead, because he was viewing that religion is kind of, people are beginning to develop a different view, something's changing. And so he encapsulated that in that sentence, God is dead. A lot of people misinterpret it, but that's what he was talking about. And so what happens when you don't have this, what they call an external referent, to tell you what to do and how to do it? Well, you got to figure it out for yourself. And so, that's what this song is about, that I based the album on, Song of the Bricoleur, is we are making it up as we go. And the implication of that is that in a time like we are right now, which is a pivotal moment in history, we have agency. We don't have to, there's no cavalry going to come save us. We're it. That's the idea behind Song of the Bricoleur. Now, not every song on the album goes to that theme, but most of them do. Certainly the title song does.
And Rags Rosenberg, I am so pleased to meet you. And
Likewise.
hopefully we'll meet again someday, or talk at least. We have lots and lots in common. And is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
Well, it's just, again, really good to meet you too, Artie. And thank you for reaching out to me to do this, because it's been a real pleasure. And the fact that I had to kind of review everything about the album in order to be up to have this conversation was really good for me, to go back into that and reaffirmed for me why I did it. So
Well,
thank
I'm
you for that.
happy. I'm very happy that you did do it. And I know that folks, if folks haven't heard this album, go to Rags's website, once again, ragsrosenberg.com, and check it out. Purchase the album. They could get the album on your website, right, Rags?
They can download it, and they can also stream it. So
Great.
you can purchase it either way, but it's like, it would be really helpful at this point in time if people decide, oh, I'd like to have a physical copy of that album.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah. And are you
Because the artwork is fabulous. I know you can't, it's out of
Well,
focus. I
yeah.
don't know how to,
Who did the
there it
artwork?
is. There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the artwork. And Catherine's song, that woman Catherine,
Uh-huh.
that's her artwork.
Oh,
That
okay.
guy there, that's the Bricoleur.
Wow.
He's
all
he's,
right.
he's consulting his astrolabe, the ancient navigation device, to see where he is and where he wants to go.
Huh. That's amazing. Anyway, so Rex, thanks again. And
welcome.
I'm so happy to meet you. And hopefully folks will get this album and listen to it. It's quite good. It's one of the reasons I wanted to speak with this guy, even though I had never heard of him before. I said, who is this guy? And I just found out. Rags Rosenberg, super guy. And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Artie.
Today
Have a wonderful
I went out
afternoon,
walking
Rags.
I will. You
down
too.
my garden
Take care.
path.
Bye-bye.
The
Bye-bye now.
lilacs and the lilies had all gone to seed. The leaves of golden maple, they let go one by one, but the berries, they were full and round and sweet, and the garden smelled like earth. The